Out of all of the cases of mesothelioma that are diagnosed, about 75% are pleural mesothelioma, the form that affects the lining of the cavity that holds the lungs. But what exactly is pleural mesothelioma, and why is it so much more common than other forms of this disease? Understanding the answers to these questions can help you recognize symptoms earlier, understand your risks better, and know what to expect if you or someone you love receives this diagnosis. I'm Terry Oppenheimer. I've been writing about mesothelioma and asbestos for the website mesothelioma.net for over a decade, and today I want to explain what pleural mesothelioma is and why it's the most common form of this extremely rare cancer. Let's start with what pleural mesothelioma actually is. To understand this, you need to know about the pleura. The pleura is a thin, double-layered membrane that surrounds your lungs. The outer layer, called the parietal pleura, lines the inside of your chest wall, and the inner layer, called the visceral pleura, covers the surface of each lung. Between these two layers is a small space called the pleural cavity, which contains a tiny amount of lubricating fluid that allows your lungs to move smoothly when you breathe. Pleural mesothelioma is a cancer that develops within these pleural membranes. It starts when asbestos fibers that have been inhaled become lodged in the pleura. These microscopic fibers cause chronic inflammation and damage to the cells of the pleural lining. Over many years, typically 20 to 50 after exposure to asbestos, this damage can lead to cancerous changes in the cells. Tumors form in the pleural tissue, and these tumors can thicken the pleura, making it stiff and restricting lung expansion. The cancer also typically causes fluid to accumulate between the pleural layers. This condition is called pleural effusion. This fluid buildup compresses the lungs further and makes breathing increasingly difficult. The symptoms of pleural mesothelioma reflect these physical changes. The most common early symptom is progressive shortness of breath as fluid accumulates and tumors restrict your lung expansion. Many patients develop a persistent dry cough as the irritated pleura triggers a cough reflex that doesn't help, because the problem isn't in the airways. Chest pain is also common, typically described as a dull ache in the chest wall or shoulder that gets worse with deep breathing or coughing. As the disease progresses, patients may experience additional symptoms like fatigue, unexplained weight loss, difficulty swallowing if tumors press on the esophagus, and a raspy voice if the cancer affects the nerves that control the vocal cords. Before I go on, I want to take a quick break here and say if you're finding this information helpful, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. It really helps us get our videos in front of more people who need to see them. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to address in a future video, note it in the comment section below. Finally, keep watching until the end of the video because I'm going to give you valuable information about accessing important resources. Now, why is pleural mesothelioma so much more common than other forms? The answer lies in how people are typically exposed to asbestos. The vast majority of asbestos exposure happens through inhalation, breathing in asbestos fibers that are airborne in work environments or other settings. Think about the major sources of asbestos exposure. Construction workers cutting, drilling, or disturbing asbestos-containing materials. Shipyard workers installing or removing asbestos insulation. Industrial workers in plants where asbestos was used in manufacturing processes. And military personnel, especially Navy veterans working on ships where asbestos was everywhere. In all of these scenarios, the primary route of exposure is breathing in asbestos dust and fibers. When you inhale asbestos fibers, some get trapped in your lungs and airways, but many migrate to the pleura. The pleura is essentially a filter. It's one of the places where inhaled particles that make it deep into your respiratory system tend to accumulate. The body's natural defense mechanisms try to clear these fibers, but asbestos is incredibly resistant. The fibers become permanently embedded in the pleural tissue, and over decades, they cause continuous inflammation. Your immune system recognizes the fibers as foreign and tries to attack them, but can't break them down or remove them. This chronic inflammatory response damages the DNA of pleural cells and eventually leads to cancerous mutations. By contrast, the form of mesothelioma that affects the lining of the abdomen accounts for about 20% of cases. Peritoneal mesothelioma is less common because the pathway to peritoneal exposure is less direct. Some researchers believe that asbestos fibers that are inhaled can eventually migrate through the lymphatic system to the peritoneum. Others believe fibers can be ingested, swallowed in mucus or in contaminated food or water, and then penetrate through the intestinal wall to reach the peritoneum. There's also some evidence that talc contaminated with asbestos, when used in genital areas, can directly expose the peritoneum. But these pathways are all less direct and probably involve lower levels of exposure than direct inhalation. That's why peritoneal mesothelioma is less common. Pericardial mesothelioma, which affects the lining around the heart, and testicular mesothelioma, which affects the lining of the testes, are extremely rare. Together, they account for less than 2% of all mesothelioma cases. The pathways for asbestos fibers to reach these locations are even less clear and presumably even less common. The dominance of pleural mesothelioma also reflects historical patterns of asbestos use. Asbestos was most heavily used in industries and applications where it would become airborne. Insulation that workers cut and fitted, fireproofing materials that were sprayed, brake linings that created dust when they were serviced. All of these uses primarily expose workers through inhalation. Understanding that pleural mesothelioma is the most common form has important implications. First, it means that shortness of breath and respiratory symptoms should be taken very seriously by anyone with an asbestos exposure history. These are the most common early warning signs, and they shouldn't be dismissed as just getting old or being out of shape. Second, it means that people with an asbestos exposure history should be particularly attentive to lung health. If you were exposed to asbestos decades ago, even if you feel fine now, you're at risk for pleural mesothelioma. Symptoms often don't appear until the disease is advanced, so any persistent respiratory changes need immediate medical attention and preferably imaging studies. Chest X-rays and CT scans are the most important diagnostic tools for catching mesothelioma early. If you have an asbestos exposure history and develop respiratory symptoms, don't settle for a doctor saying that the X-ray looks fine. Insist on a CT scan. It's much more sensitive for detecting early pleural changes. The treatment approaches for pleural mesothelioma differ from peritoneal mesothelioma. While peritoneal mesothelioma has seen excellent results with cytoreductive surgery and HIPEC, surgery for pleural mesothelioma is more controversial and requires very careful patient selection. Immunotherapy with nivolumab and ipilimumab has become a standard first-line option for pleural disease and has shown particularly strong results. The prognosis for pleural mesothelioma is also generally more challenging than for peritoneal, with median survival times typically ranging from 12 to 18 months with treatment, though some patients do live much longer, especially with newer treatments like immunotherapy combinations. Early detection and treatment at specialized centers can significantly improve outcomes. Pleural mesothelioma is cancer of the lining around the lungs, and it's the most common form of mesothelioma because most asbestos exposure happens through inhalation. When you breathe in asbestos fibers, they become embedded in the pleura, causing inflammation and damage that can lead to cancer decades later. If you have any history of asbestos exposure and you develop progressive shortness of breath, persistent cough, or chest pain, seek medical attention immediately. Early detection matters. And if you need more information about pleural mesothelioma or any asbestos-related disease, visit mesothelioma.net and use our live chat feature, or call 1-800-692-8608 to speak directly to one of our helpful patient advocates. As for me, remember to post questions below, and I'll see you next time.